The 6th season of Rick and Morty has already ended. We don't know when the 7th season will air, but thanks to the Rick and Morty comics, we have tons of stuff to cover and do videos about. And today, I want to talk about the original Rick Prime. He is not the same Rick Prime that we know from the series, but he shares the same name with him. Surprisingly enough, these two are the only Ricks who share their names, and who knows, maybe there is some connection between that, and in this dimension, they, in fact, are the same Rick. Besides the original Rick Prime's backstory, this comic also covers the creation of the Council of Ricks, and I found this one very interesting, and today I want to talk about it. But before starting, I want to ask you all to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. I hope you all have a great day. Now let's start the video. The comics that we will talk about today are called Rick and Morty Presents Council of Ricks. It is the 9th issue of the Rick and Morty Presents comic series and was released on Oni Press on June 24th, 2020. The story takes place a long time ago. In a bar, we can see one robot who talks about Rick Prime. He says how Rick Prime used to be the top detective of the Citadel, but now he became a private eye who takes all the jobs that the low-life Ricks throw at his way. This made Rick Prime very irritated, and he just shot without a single thought. They are soon met by Rick the Fourth and Sergeant Poopy Butthole, who became Sergeant after his Rick Prime's retirement. From the robot, we learn that Rick Fourth is from the universe C7218, who is the latest in the long line of Rick royalty and is a by-the-book straight shooter. Rick Prime didn't let the robot finish his sentence and shot him. Then he is taken by them via police car. He asked them the reason why they even met him, and Rick the Fourth told him that he will find out about it soon. They take him to the Rickingham Palace, a reference to the real-life Buckingham Palace. They have a meeting with Rick Minister. It seems that before the council was created, the Citadel was ruled by one Rick, Prime Rick Minister. He meets 3 of them. Rick Prime isn't pleased to be there, which shows us how he dislikes the whole governing system, similar to our Rick C-137. Prime Rick Minister then tells his Morty to take Servant Poopy Butthole to the commissary to get him some of those cookies that come with their own frosting dip. This would allow him to stay alone with other Ricks to discuss their business. Prime Rick Minister starts talking about the space train, the Disorient Express. Both Rick Prime and Rick the Fourth comment about how offensive and bad this name was. Prime Rick Minister then starts explaining how their target should be on board and how their intel says that he is carrying what they believe to be the most dangerous weapon in the multiverse. Rick Prime starts taking this thing unseriously and says how if they wanted a Rick who cared about saving the universe, they probably should have gone with a Rick that didn't spend all his money on booze and trench coats. Prime Rick Minister then reveals that the reason why they chose him to investigate this was because the seller is his old partner, the Morty Prime. He then continues and says that this is a level 9 Rick emergency, which means if he screwed up, they all would die, and he made Rick the Fourth accompany Rick Prime. Rick Prime then says that he doesn't need anyone since he works alone. This reminded me of the moment when our Rick Prime told Cronenberg Jerry how he doesn't team up anymore and works alone. Rick the Fourth is also not a fan of this team-up, but Prime Rick Minister insists on them not being on their own. He also told them that they had taken the liberty of gathering a few other familiar Rick faces. These Ricks were Zeta Alpha Rick, Maximus Rickmus and Rictiminus Sangizamunius, Quantum Rick, and Indestructilegs Rick. The one thing that should be noted is that all of these Ricks later become the members of the Council of Ricks. We could see how different they were before starting managing the Citadel. In the next scene, they are in some kind of spaceship in the range of the Disorient Express, and they start planning their battle. Their plan is simple. They're gonna pop in there, secure that secret weapon, and get out. Maximus Rickmus and Rictiminus Sangizamunius immediately volunteer to do the killing. Rick Prime tells them to just leave Morty Prime to them. Then we see a little flashback of him and Morty and see the reason why they don't team up anymore. Rick Prime looks very sad about Morty Prime, and it seems he really cares about him. After they teleported in the ship, there is suspicious emptiness. They note that their scanners said the place should be crawling with galactic soldiers, and yet they were nowhere to be seen. Indestructilegs Rick immediately volunteers to inspect the place since he has indestructible legs, but this move turned out to be a fatal one. Invisible galactic soldiers immediately murdered him brutally. Unfortunately, I can't show you that panel because of YouTube policies, but trust me, the panel was very violent. At first, they were in shock, but they quickly started fighting back. Rick Prime found his Morty and started chasing him. He finally got him in the corner. Morty tells him how everything is not as it looks, and Rick Prime needs to blow the pod and forget about it. Then, he uses a teleportation technique and randomly goes into the Vampires and Turtlenecks universe. Then, Rick Prime and Rick the Fourth have a discussion about the pod. Rick the Fourth tells him how the mission stated that they shouldn't open the pod, and Rick Prime starts doubting it, and he wants to open the pod and find out why they made him do this mission. Those two have a big argument about that, but Rick Prime didn't change his mind and still opened the pod. When he opened it, he was in shock. he could see a complete exact clone of him. They were all surprised since the cloning of Ricks was outlawed by the Rick-Neva Convention. Rick Prime then angrily went towards Rick IV and asked him if he knew all that, to which Rick IV answered that he suspected. According to him, it all started a few months back when he noticed a change in his best friend, Safari Rick. Then we see a flashback of him and Safari Rick. After that, he started doing some digging and found out that those Ricklicants had infiltrated all of Rick kind, from the richest Ricks on the Rick Street to the schlubs of Skid Rick Row. Somebody is replacing Ricks with those Ricklicants, but they don't really know why or who. Rick IV then explains how those Ricklicants talk like Ricks, they look like Ricks, but in truth, they aren't Ricks. After that, Rick Prime suggests they team up against the one who tried to murder them. Immediately, every other Rick agreed. Then, the clone of Rick Prime came into consciousness and suggested they give up and let the Ricklicants kill them and take over. He was immediately finished by other Ricks, which I can't show you because of copyright things. Later, we see Mr. Poopy Butthole. He started watching TV to watch some dog videos, but then, out of nowhere, Rick Prime is seen on the screen. He told him that he hacked the dog video just so he could sneak up behind him and do that. Then, we see Rick Prime punching Mr. Poopy Butthole. They then started questioning him. At first, Sergeant Poopy Butthole was hesitant on talking since they would kill him if he told them the truth. In order to make him talk, Zeta Alpha Rick brought a bag full of snakes and a raccoon. This scared Sergeant Poopy Butthole and he started talking. According to him, the whole mission was supposed to fail. They thought they were the only Ricks smart enough to stop them. They wanted all of them out of the way so they could take over the Citadel. Then Rick IV asked him who, which was answered by Poopy Butthole by someone who isn't scared of Ricks, and before he could finish the sentence, he was laminated like a bookmark. Then they started chasing who did that, and according to Rick IV, he had locked onto his gun's energy signature, and there is no escaping unless he escapes into the sewers, in which case there will be lots of escaping. Because that sewer looked like a maze, they decided to split. In that scene, we can see how Rick IV turned out to be a Ricklicant of the original one, and he betrayed Rick Prime and took him to the supposed leader of that whole operation. We can't really see his face or anything because it's covered in weird furry coat and chains. He asks the Ricklicant where the original Rick IV went, which he answered by saying that half of him is in the lava universe and the other half is in the universe where desks eat people. Rick Prime then comments on how he had cloned almost all of the influential Ricks in the same universe, and he wonders how he got Morty Prime to work for him, which he answered by saying that what kind of kid would say no to his father? Jerry being the master behind all of it was shocking for Rick Prime. He told Prime that he crunched the numbers and it turned out that across the multiverse he is the smartest Jerry to ever have existed. His calculations were obviously wrong because he didn't know about Doofus Jerry, who in my opinion is the smartest and the strongest version of him. Jerry then explains how for too long Jerry had to suffer as Rick after Rick made fun of them, but now the tables have turned. He then revealed that his ultimate goal was to monopolize the Citadel and then sell the Ricks to other planets. With his genius advertising in mind, they project that out of all the companies in the universe, they'd easily be in the top 17. Then Rick Prime starts telling him how garbage his idea was. He then acknowledges that Jerry is trying to take over the universe, even if he's doing it in the dumbest way humanly possible. But he forgets one thing, that even the smartest Jerry in all of the universes is still dumber than a Rick. He then kicks him in the balls, and then it is revealed that Rick IV wasn't actually a clone, but a real one, and it was all his and Prime's plan to fool them by making them think that Rick IV was a clone who betrayed and captured Prime. They are later joined by the other 4 Ricks, and the fight between them and the army of Jerry's starts. Ricks were obviously dominating the fight, and they in the end came out as victorious. The main Jerry tried to escape in the other dimension. Fortunately, Rick Prime managed to mess with his final destination and sent him in a dimension where desks eat people, which turned out to be fatuous for Jerry. They then have a discussion on what to do about all those clones, and how they're gonna tell the Ricks apart from the Ricklicants. They question what makes someone human and what makes someone a machine that they use for their amusement. Rick IV then has an idea and asks them to get blood from all of them. By comparing their Rick blood to the Ricklicants, they can isolate it down to the core Rick DNA, basically what makes Rick a Rick. Then it's a simple matter of boiling it down to some easy to administer test like the Magic Eye poster. Only true Ricks will be able to see that drawing of that happy sprinkle puff tugboat that had been hidden inside it. In the next scene, we can see them forcing other Ricks to look at the drawing and asking them what is drawn there. They are then met by Prime Rick Minister, who told them that he didn't think they'd survive, so he didn't have any medals or anything made. Rick the Fourth takes it as an honor, but Rick Prime gets suspicious about him and tells him that they have to make sure that they are really a Rick, and asks him what is drawn. Rick the Fourth tries stopping him by saying that he is the Prime Rick Minister, which is countered by Rick Prime, saying that he is also the guy who sent them on that mission. He then asks Prime Rick Minister to do that so that they could all go home and sleep like a bunch of baby slappy tops. Prime Rick Minister says that on the poster there is the Sprinkle Puff. After getting that answer, Rick Prime immediately shot him. Rick the Fourth is very confused because he passed the test, to which Rick Prime replied, saying that he switched out the drawing of the Sprinkle Puff for something else, so Prime Rick Minister's answer was wrong, which meant that he was a clone too. Rick the Fourth is in shock and doesn't know what to do since the Citadel needs a leader. Rick Prime says that Jerry had the right idea. They couldn't just have one leader calling all the shots, and he suggested that whatever happens next at the Citadel, they will have to do it as a crew or group of leaders, and that's how the Council of Ricks was formed. Personally, I enjoyed this comic a lot. The Council of Ricks was a very interesting concept in my opinion, and I was kinda disappointed that they didn't get any significant screen time in the series. However, this comic pretty much covered everything about them, and I'm grateful for that. What do you think? Is there any connection between this Rick Prime and our Rick Prime from the series? Let me know in the comments, like this video, and subscribe to the channel for more. Lonnie Brock's out. Bye.